Hello, Ariel. How are you? It's
I'm
so good
good.
to see. Good. It's so good to see Juliana. Juliana's name pop up in the Q&A box, because that film was wonderful. Along with all the other films, we've had such a great screening tonight, Ariel. And I personally absolutely love the ending of Possum. I just think like it's such a fun conversation starter, which is perfect because now we have our panel, with Ariel Baska, the founder of Access Horror. So I want to just kick us off. Ariel, horror has often villainized folks with disabilities, but you are working to flip the script, but also work to understand why the genre has done this. In particular, I loved how the film The Monster Inside My Head explored how disability can be a pain in the butt sometimes. But also, we need to accept that pain in the butt to work with it. And in Scarred, the first film that we watched, it's not the disability that's the horror, but how the medical model treats us. That is the horror. So with that being said, why do you think horror has so often made disability the terrifying element?
Well, it's interesting because so often when you think about horror and monsters, the way that monsters are portrayed in horror movies, the word monster itself, like, okay, I was a Latin teacher for 15 years, so it's going to creep out a little bit right here. The word monster comes from de monstro, demonstrare, the same root as demonstrate, but it literally means to show. And so it's the idea that monsters are supposed to tell a story. They're supposed to show us how to be or how not to be. And so monsters throughout all of history, in if you look at every horror movie ever made, almost all of the monsters have disabilities or are disfigured in some form or fashion, and they're telling a story about how not to be or what happens to you if you are this thing that you're not supposed to be.
Mhm.
And so it's a thing that I'm constantly looking at in my work is how do we flip that script? How do we look at monsters? How do we look at disabilities as something to be embraced within this genre that I personally deeply love?
Mhm. Definitely, definitely. Um, we did include a film that didn't explicitly show disability at all, right? And that was
Mhm.
called Slasher, where a man who is gay is unfortunately the one who is murdered. So you and I actually had a conversation about this beforehand, and I'd love for you to unpack some of the messages of that film and yeah, and what you all thought about it when it screened at Access Horror earlier in the year.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Slasher by the filmmaker Amir Moini is very much rooted in his own personal experience as someone with a non-apparent disability, someone who identifies as queer and Iranian American. And the tagline for that film is "There are no safe spaces."
Mhm.
And it's specifically about both political commentary as well as commentary on the fact that um, really he was actually told by people he was working with that he couldn't kill a gay character. As a queer man, he was told, yes, I see that is what you want to do in this script, but you're not allowed to do that. And he said, well, isn't that a form of erasure in and of itself? And personally, I don't think he's wrong about that. I actually had a phone call with him earlier today to make sure that I articulated how he felt about this accurately, because to me, it's so important that we get stories that embrace the wholeness of our identities and that are able to make these kinds of points about the fragmentation and the isolation of our world because of social media apps, which is really fundamentally the point he
Mhm.
was trying to make. And also, always go to the orgy. That's the other story. That's the other lesson to take from that movie. You always go to the orgy. Just saying. Just saying.
I love that lesson. I love that lesson. Great life advice. No, it's interesting, Ariel, because I'm a writer and director myself, and I the first feature script that I wrote featured a character with a disability who basically wanted to get revenge, and turned into a villain, but a villain that you were rooting for. And when I brought it up to when it made the rounds in different production companies, the note I kept getting was, well, yeah, but we don't want to get in trouble because we don't want to have the person with a disability be the villain again and then us to get in trouble for that. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, on the one hand, I agree we shouldn't always be the villain, but on the other hand, I am a disabled filmmaker. This is my experience, and it's a much more nuanced portrayal. And also we're rooting for the villain. The villain is our main character. The villain is not someone we're fighting against. Um, and so it is interesting, and I think it gets back to this whole thing of we just need a variety of our experiences. It's not that we need every character who is disabled to be a figure of justice to combat the way we've been villainized. It's just we need more of our stories told by us to really shake things up and make a difference.
Exactly. And I would argue that, it's when we are the sole representation that people have that our stories get most erased and
Mhm.
most dictated to in terms of what they should or should not be.
Exactly, exactly. Like why was my script being so like put under the microscope and judged for every little thing, whereas another person who is non-disabled can just write a disabled villain or a villain with a scar and it doesn't get any checks, right?
Mhm.
You're exactly right. It's like all of a sudden when you position a script or a film as a film about disability or as a film about the LGBTQ community, all of a sudden it becomes much more scrutinized, even if it is about your experience, or even if it is authentic to you and how you feel. So that's a really great point to bring up. We
And
also,
and the other, oh, I'm sorry. One
no,
one
go
other
for it.
quick thing I want to actually point out is that so often when we're looking at stories of horror on screen, the most important characters are either the villain. Actually, my lead actor from the first film I ever directed said this. You have two really great opportunities as an actor: to die on screen and to be a villain. And if neither of those things is available to you because of the identities that you hold, that actually limits your opportunities as an actor. So that's just also something to think about.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a really good point as well. Um, okay, so we also had the film Dead End Drive, and we had, of course, the film Possum, which we ended on. So Dead End Drive really flips the script of the disability narrative, and instead of viewing the disabled character as a burden in the zombie apocalypse, it ends up being a love story of survival. And Possum is just so fun because it includes disabled characters, but it's actually more about performative activism, right? So with that being said, what kind of themes are you most excited to explore in your own work?
Oh boy. Well, themes in my own work. Before I get to the themes in my own work, I do want to share that the title of this whole block. There were originally two blocks in Access Horror when it premiered in New York City. Um, the title of this block was "Flesh of My Flesh," And I feel very strongly that there are some really incredible body horror pieces that came out of this. Particularly, I want to shout out Juliana's film Scarred, which really has resonated with a lot of people. Access Horror this year has been on Shudder through Halloween night. So you can actually watch all of the films that we programmed uh, uh, in New York City. They're all on Shudder. You can try it for 7 days free trial on streaming through tomorrow night. But what's really exciting to me is to see portrayals where ableism is the horror. I've often said that the thing that I love about the horror genre is so often when we have abled bodies doing the directing and the shooting, you know, disability is the horror. But what I love about films like Dead End Drive and Possum is that, you know, the ableism, the uh, you know, sort of normative behavior is the horrific thing. And so I just love those kinds of narratives. And that's what I'm always trying for in my own work. I have a documentary I'm working on right now about my relationship with Freddy Krueger. Growing up as a disabled and disfigured child who had a bad babysitter at age 3, who brought over a bag of weed, her boyfriend, and a VHS of A Nightmare on Elm Street. And my life was forever changed.
I love that so much. Yeah, my mom was a I so I kind of joke that I was raised on Doctor Who and Bollywood films, but I was also raised on a lot of horror films because my parents they didn't have a ton of money to get like babysitters, and they loved spending time with us, and so I watched horror films from a very young age with a pillow in front of my face. But that kind of made me fall in love with horror. And as a kid with a disability growing up, it was interesting because the horror films didn't scare me as much as they should have. And it was because my own experiences going through ableism were more horrific than like demons and ghouls in horror films. And I think like my mom kind of knew that. And so watching these films was like a really fun bonding experience for us. So
Oh,
I
that's
love
so
that
wonderful.
documentary. Can you share, Ariel, a little bit more about the future of the documentary, when you think it'll be released? What does production look like on it, if that's okay?
Sure, sure. So we're trying to finish out the short documentary form of it, which we will be submitting to festivals, God willing, in January 2026. I'm hoping, you know, that we can get a premiere sometime around summertime. And in the fall, I'd love if we could bring it to Superfest
I
for
was
some.
gonna say I know a festival and it's pretty cool. You know, it's called Superfest. You know.
Yeah. I'm hoping, but I, you know, I think it's a mostly a visual essay about Freddie and me. And so it's got archival home video footage shot by my father, interspersed with horror of Freddy Krueger, and also films that I was also consuming in the 80s that my parents wanted me to consume, that had nice inspirational porn kinds of themes, like Mask and Elephant Man and things like this. So I hopefully it'll be a fun time. And you know, I'm trying to raise the money to get it made into a feature, but as we all know, money and filmmaking, uh, it's an uphill battle all the time, all the time.
All the time. It's especially rough right now. Especially rough right now when our stories are just being cut left and right from the mainstream and also suppressed just in general. But can you talk a little bit more about how folks can support Access Horror and what your future vision for it is.
Absolutely. So Access Horror, we have our website, accesshorror.com. You can very easily support us by sharing information about our festival, share your reviews of the films you just watched on Letterboxd. You can also, message Shutter about how great we are anytime you want. But really, truly, the thing that helps us most is for you to just keep showing up to the things that we do and the programs we do. Follow us on Instagram at Access Horror. We're also on accesshorror.com. What our vision is for the future really is more collaborations like this. We really want to be able to stay with disability community and really reach as many different diverse audiences as we can. Also, to go a little more international too. Like it's really great that we're bi-coastal this year, but you know, we world domination, not stopping till world domination.
Yes. World domination, yes. And I want to also highlight Juliana, who is the director and actor of Scarred, is in the chat as well and popped in again. So I'm going to share their social media handle because you're able to connect with them there. Hold on one second, for director of Scarred, and help support our amazing filmmakers. Ariel, I wanted to ask you a bit about how you founded Access Horror and the journey of that, because I think, there are a lot of folks who would find learning the journey helpful for their own creative pursuits. So if you could talk a little bit about that, that would be great.
Sure. So the journey to creating Access Horror really came out of an inaccessible festival experience. I made a horror film where I sent a doctor to hell for telling a patient it was all in her head. That film, our first priority, you can find on my website. It's freely available. But when I went to film festivals, I got into festivals from Mexico to Berlin to Mumbai. But I went to a lot of these festivals and found that there was absolutely no accessibility for me as a filmmaker. They had accepted my film, which was about a disability experience, but they had no way of actually letting me request accommodations I needed. They had no way of allowing me the things that I needed to be successful in those spaces. And I had a lot of crip rage, I'll be very honest, around the experience. And so I felt very strongly that I needed to come up with some structure that was actually accessible to the disability community for film festivals.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to show people you can do it. It's not that hard. Um, I mean, it is, but I wanted to show people it's possible. It is hard, but it's very, very possible, and you can do it right. And this is how I'm going to do it, and I'm just going to show you. I'm going to show you. That's my attitude always. So
I love that. I love that. So I got a message from Dagny saying we have a lot of people in the virtual space and in the physical room at the DCC. So I want to open it up for audience questions. So if anybody has questions, you can use the Q&A box in the virtual space, but you can also ask questions in person. So I'll give it a couple of moments for folks to see if they want to say anything, or even if you have comments, about any like things that surprised you tonight or things that you loved. One of the things that I personally loved was the possum, like the puppeted possum. Just makes me so happy whenever I see it. Olga says, I really loved the films. They were interesting. Thank you. Do we have anybody in the physical space with a question or a comment?
Okay.
Regarding the efforts to make accessible art, can you talk a little bit about where captioning and descriptions fit into your artistic process? Is that, I think, traditionally often an afterthought, so I'm curious to hear how you put that in the forefront and how that fits into the timeline of how things are made.
Oh, that's a really phenomenal question. Like I could have planted you in the audience to ask me that question, seriously. Because one of our missions with Access Horror in 2023, we actually did this festival entirely virtually in 2023. And everything was captioned. We made sure that everything had captions, but we didn't have audio description for everything. We relied on the curation of other film festivals. So we had a block of films from Superfest, a block of films from Fantastic Fest, and a block of films from Final Girls Berlin. And we just couldn't afford the audio description component. In terms of my own work, because my first film played at Superfest, that meant that it was given both captions and audio description essentially for free. On the filmmaker side, these assets often cost a lot of money. And so it's an enormous gift that Superfest gave me to have that. And I never forgot that. And so in 2025, we made sure that all of our films were connected with our fabulous captioner back there, Storm Miguel Flores, and Cheryl Green, who worked with the Social Audio Description Collective to do really incredible work and worked with the filmmakers. So our filmmakers from 2025, who you just saw, all of them had the opportunity to either have quality control on the accessibility assets they already had, or alternatively, to create new ones side by side with really great professionals. And we meant it to be kind of a learning experience for this batch of filmmakers. But in my own work, Monstrous Me, for example, that I'm working on right now, the really hard thing is I'm having to create 5 versions of this film because I want to have not only captions and audio description, I want to have as someone who's on the deafblind spectrum, I have realized that I really appreciate having my audio description captioned in and of itself. And so I can understand better what's happening visually as well as what's happening auditorily. And I've also realized that for neurodiverse audiences, sometimes it's too much flying at you at once. And so you need to have traditional captions available for some folks when it just feels a little bit too much. And I also am doing creative captions on screen so that it feels like a storybook that's being told to you about the story of me and Freddy Krueger. And so to do all of that, I am working with Cheryl Green, who's working on all of these things with me, literally frame by frame almost, to make sure we've got the negative space to accommodate what we need, and to make sure that I've got enough audio space in the audio track while I'm talking about my experiences to be able to share her beautiful poetic descriptions. So
Mhm.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Ariel, I love that. I just have like one quick thing to add to that answer. Again, Ariel, like that you described the process so wonderfully. Because access for films really truly makes it, especially when they're creative. I remember when my film got into Superfest in 2020, I didn't have audio descriptions in because I didn't quite know how to build them. And I didn't have the funds to like hire somebody else to do it. So I decided, since I know editing, to take a crack at it myself. And if you are a director or producer or a writer, I strongly recommend taking a short film, whether it's online or it's one of your own, and doing a creative exercise and making audio description for it just on your own, just for fun, because it teaches you so much about the structure of filmmaking from, again, an access standpoint. And so, one of the things that I love that you said, Ariel, is that you're making things creative and feel like a storybook with captions. One of the things I did with my audio description was I made it satirical, which was the same tone as the film, right? And so I absolutely love when that creativity of the tone seeps into the access as well. We have a comment from Olga in the chat that says, I am autistic and I use audio descriptions so that I can understand what is happening between the characters. Exactly, right? Like audio description isn't just for folks who are low vision or blind. It can be for, folks with a variety of different disabilities or needs. Do we have any more questions in the room or comments?
Hi there, my name's Nicole. Thank you so much for the screening. It was fantastic. I'm curious, you've screened your films, Ariel, I'm imagining in a variety of audiences, folks who identify as disabled, folks who do not identify as disabled. And I'm just curious what you've noticed about the different reactions depending on who's watching.
Honestly, okay. So I have to share, because you asked that specific question, I have to share my experience with the first film I ever directed, Our First Priority. When I showed that at Superfest, it was hosted at the Asian Art Museum, very close by. And it was literally the first time that everybody got it. Like literally everybody in the audience was gasping appropriately, laughing appropriately, like audible sighs that just meant everything to me. Literally, like I cannot express how wonderful that collective experience really was. Like it made me cry at the time, and I won the advocacy award that year, and like I had to get up and give a little speech in front of like Alice Wong. Oh my God. I was so nervous. But it was so deeply meaningful to me to be in community with disability in a very specific way, especially right then in 2022 when we had lost so many people because of COVID, and there was so much isolation in so many ways. What's interesting to me now is that when you are in a room showing films like these films in non-disabled community, a lot of people don't know how to respond. Like they're like, should I be laughing? I don't know if I should be laughing. I don't know. But it's interesting because people respond to the horror in non-disabled circles, but people in disabled circles respond more strongly to the humor, I find. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Just sort of anecdotally what I see.
No, yeah, I 100% also, that's been my experience as well. I released like a somewhat satirical, well, it was satirical comedy, but very dark humor, right? That ended up in Superfest in 2020. And like it was interesting because when it played in non-disabled spaces, like you said, Ariel, it's like people were afraid to laugh. And the ones who were laughing were kind of nervous and looking around, like, should I be laughing? And then when it played at Superfest and like other disabled spaces, people were just belly laughing, like it just loudly, right? Because they got it. And Emily loves to say that that's what makes Superfest an amazing community, right? We feature films that are made by disabled folks for disabled folks, just like Access Horror does. So I love that. And then Rosemary, hello. They're in the chat, and they say disabled people have a great sense of humor. Yes, we do. We really
Oh
do.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
I did have a question, but then Nicole stole my question.
Okay, no worries. I just can't see the room, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So Ariel, I have probably like one wrap up question. And that is for, you know, folks in the room who might be creatives, whether it's like, you know, creatives through any medium. What advice do you have for them, especially like in the current climate? What advice do you have for them for making art and putting it out there right now?
Honestly, the biggest advice I have is the world needs your stories. Really, genuinely, the world needs your stories. The world needs your voice. So whatever you do, don't stop making. I know it's disheartening and hard when so much of the narrative is controlled by crap right now. But honestly, earnestly find your community, find your tribe of people who will support you and will, in this interdependent, beautiful way, help you make your work better. I really believe very strongly in community and the good work of places like the San Francisco Disability Cultural Center in bringing community together and giving people a beautiful kind of third space to make that work and make that work sing. And, you know, whether you have these third spaces or not, find a way to connect with people who can support you and make your work better and critique you and tell you why it sucks. Because, you know, everything you make is going to suck in someone's eyes. So you might as well know about it first. So
I love that, Ariel. You know, I really strongly believe that the future of creativity and filmmaking is independent. It was interesting because before this administration took power, I was submitting scripts and films and basically like parading my trauma about in Hollywood to see like because that's what they wanted, right? They wanted our trauma. Just to see like if somebody would give me money for my story. And then this administration took power and then they didn't even want that. They didn't even want the trauma, right? And I was like, you know, I don't want to give you permission to use my stories anymore. Like, I don't want to put my story. I went through this whole period of like 5 months of no writing, no submitting anything because I was like, how dare you? You don't get to own my work or my stories if you're just going to change your mind depending on, you know, which way the country is being governed. So it is a tough climate for us creatives, but I love what Ariel said. Keep creating independently, keep putting your stories out there. These third spaces, like you said, Ariel, are so important. Find your people, find your community, keep posting online. You are all beautiful. Your stories are beautiful. They're what makes us human, right? And they're what keeps us empathetic. So thank you, Ariel, seriously, for being here. It's always a joy to do these horror showcases with you. And yeah, I look forward to more good horror films coming out in the next year. But the one I liked this year was Weapons. I don't know if you had a favorite this year, Ariel.
ooh, Sinners by far.
Oh, Sinners was so good.
Okay, Sinners. I'm just gonna say I saw Sinners 5 times in theaters. No regrets. It's coming back to IMAX. I'm gonna see it again. Just FYI.
Sinners
Also
to me,
available. Oh, sorry.
no, go for it.
One quick other note about Sinners. It is available on HBO Max with Black ASL interpretation. If you don't know about this already, go watch it with Black ASL interpretation. Ryan Coogler's wife is an interpreter, and it is brilliantly done. And it does change how you see the film.
That's exactly what I was going to add. I was going to add that it's done in Black American Sign Language, because that is such an amazing feature and win for our community, that they did that in one of the biggest films of this year. And again, like, I see Sinners as like not just a horror, but like a drama, and like I feel like it's everything in one, right? It's like, it's funny, it's romantic, it's sweet, it's just, oh, it fills your soul.
It really does. It really does.
Yeah, I saw it twice. I wish I had seen it 5 times. Maybe now that it's going to be re-released.
Too late.
Wait, what? Oh, do it? Okay, I thought you said too late. I got worried.
No, I said it's not too late.
It's not. It's never too late. So yeah, that is our call to action. Go see Sinners. No. But yeah, again, Ariel, thank you so much, y'all. We will be sending out an email with how you can support Ariel in their future endeavors, and how you can support Access Horror and stay up to date. The link to Shudder is in the chat if you would like to get a free trial and watch any of these films again. And just thank you for spending your Halloween Eve with us. We welcome you to attend more DCC events. You can find out more in a link that I am going to post in chat very soon. You can also sign up for our newsletter and follow us. Thank you to our Access team. Seriously, y'all are amazing. And just, again, y'all are beautiful. Keep telling your stories. Keep being loud, keep being proud, and keep being angry, you know? And sweet, spooky dreams to everyone. All right. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you.